This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accounting insiders to learn more. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary DeHart, and I am the host of Accounting Insiders and the publisher of Insightful Accountant. Today, my guest is Hector Garcia, CPA. Hector, welcome. Thanks for joining me for a conversation about the many things that you're doing. But right now, we're really going to focus on your event, Reframe. So, but take a second just to share a little bit about your background for anybody who may not know who you are. But again, welcome. Thanks for
no, thank
taking
you,
a few
Gary. Thank you
minutes.
for having me. I've known you for so many years, and we had so many interesting conversations at events and that sort of thing, and talking about your great publications that you've managed over the years. So I'm Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA. I started my practice close to 20 years ago, and we did traditional work, accounting, bookkeeping, tax returns. And recently, about a year and a half ago, I sold the majority interest to my partners who started working for me, with me, and then now kind of manage the entire thing. And I kind of just stay as the board of directors. I'm the what would Hector do guy. So
Right.
whenever they run into a situation, they're like, Hector, we want your second opinion on this. And that's the most I do at this particular moment when it comes to managing my firm. So I'm still involved, but I spun that off so I can focus on two side projects that are no longer side projects. They're like full-blown, very active businesses, which is Right Tool, an app that talks to QuickBooks, and sort of a educational company called Reframe, or recently rebranded to Reframe. And I also have a YouTube channel where I traditionally done a lot of how to do this in QuickBooks tutorials, some tax stuff, and now not pivoting per se. I still do a couple of QuickBooks things, but I'm mostly excited about AI and how AI is going to change our profession. So if you go and Google AI for accounting or ChatGPT for accounting, it's very possible that you will land into one of my videos.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you were one of the, from my perspective, one of the early adopters of leveraging social media, YouTube, to put information out there around QuickBooks, and you use that really to, I mean, to acquire clients, right? Was that kind of the primary purpose of that?
Yeah, so it was it accidentally became a strategy to acquire
Okay.
clients. So the way it started is I started a webinar series with Michelle Long, who recently
Yep.
retired. She's a legend in the QuickBooks
Sure.
consulting world. And the webinar series ran every other week, so about 52 episodes a year. And we went deep into a particular QuickBooks topic, deep into accounts receivable, deep into accounts payable, deep into journal entries, deep into inventory. And every time the episode ended, we would email people a list of a link to the recording, and then they would email back and say, "Where's the recording?" And I didn't get the email, I didn't get the link, and I said, you know what? I'll just start posting the recordings into YouTube so people stop asking me for the damn recording, right?
They know where
So
to
I was
go.
telling people, if you email me and ask me about the recording, I'm not going to answer. There's a YouTube channel, just subscribe to it. So I started posting the recordings of these 1-hour CPE webinars. And then I started getting comments, and the comments were, hey, you didn't cover this. Hey, you didn't cover that. Hey, what about this? What about that? And then I felt compelled to either answer those comments by creating the next topic of the webinar series, or maybe doing a quick hit 15, 20, 30-minute video. Some people would comment like, hey, it took you like 10 minutes to get to the point, because you spend like 10 minutes introducing yourself, introducing the topic, adding context, talking about CPEs. So then I started cutting the video up. So like every time we had a recording, I cut the intro, cut the outro, if we had a sponsor, cut that part out, and just like sort of leave the tutorial portion. So I did that to sort of serve the audience. And then all of a sudden, people started requesting things, and they were outside the scope of what we were doing in the webinars. So I started making videos on its own, literally just to serve the audience. And I did this mostly out of, like, challenge accepted, right? Yeah, of course I know the answer to that. Let me prove to you that I know the answer to that type of thing. And then the first person called the office and says, "Can I hire you?" And of course, I mean, I already had clients from my regular, business that was ongoing and referrals and all that stuff. But the first person that said, "I found you on YouTube." And I said, "Well, what did you find?" "Well, I saw every one of your videos. And by this time I had maybe like 7 videos. And I'm convinced that you're the one that can help me." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you need help with?" And it was something that had nothing to do with anything I ever taught. But the videos kind of showcased a method, a
your skill set,
process,
right?
a
That's
skill
awesome.
set, a method, a process. And they told me, "I've never met an accountant that has taught me this much before, and I haven't paid you anything. And I've been working with my accountant for 15 years. And that person has never taught me anything. And it's always rushed. There's always last minute. And I feel that you're patient, that you can deal with me. So I want to pay you to teach me how to walk me through this process." And I already had done training in the past. This wasn't like a new thing. But the fact that somebody came from YouTube was huge. And it clicked. It clicked. I got to stop doing Google ads. I got to stop doing Facebook marketing. I got to stop even networking. I got to stop just like any sort of marketing. I just continue to create content because it served 3 purposes. 1, it advertised my skills, showcased my process, showcased my patient, et cetera, et cetera. 2, it created a platform for me to force myself to practice. And when you teach something, you learn it twice, which is why in the accounting profession, when you teach a CPA course, you get double the amount of hours. In Florida, it's actually triple the amount of hours. So, so conceptually, right? If the certifying body of continuing education says 1 hour CPE, when you receive it, it's 1 hour, but when you teach it, it's 3 hours. That pretty much proves the point. I remember my grandmother used to say, when you sing, it's like praying twice, right, in church. So I think it's kind of what they meant, right? Like when it comes out of you, and you memorized it and you learned it and you do it with, you're in the moment and you're doing it to please others, it is double or triple the power. So I figured this is going to help me hone my craft. This is going to help me get better at what I do. And the third huge advantage to that is for training your team. First of all, when people come work with me, they immediately are awe of like my skills without even having the first conversation. A lot of the people have confessed to me that in the interview, they were nervous, not because they're nervous for the jobs, they're nervous to talk to the guy that they've been learning from. And it creates a sense of authority, and your team has deep respect for your knowledge. And as you get older and your staff gets younger, and you want to prevent that okay boomer situation, right, where they're looking at you like you're old and you don't know this stuff, like I'm the
old
young
man
one.
doesn't know anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so as the gap in age comes in, I have my street cred, right? Like I said, look, I've been doing this for 15 years, and yes, it's possible that you may be a little bit more faster and technically savvy than I am, but I got history to tell you that it's not my first rodeo. So those 3 reasons fortified why I had to continue to create content. And even in today's age, where at this point I have more leads that I could even want, I still continue to create content because it's just become muscle memory.
Yeah. And as you said, I mean, you learn so much as you're creating that content, right? And it makes you more valuable in many, many ways. So what we're going to do, you and I had talked about kind of making this the focus, reframe the focus of this, but I think what we'll do is we'll just have one continuous conversation, and then I'll chop this up, afterwards, and have one that's focused on reframe and one that's focused on Hector. So let's just keep on this theme right now of you and your background and kind of how you got to where you are. So you've got your right tool shirt on, and where did that idea, concept, drive come from? And actually explain what right tool is, and then answer that question for me.
Sure. So right tool it's a very generic name, right? Like when I was trying to copyright Right Tool, it wasn't easy. There's tons of companies
Oh,
that
really?
use Right
Okay.
Tool, right? Because in so many contexts, you need a tool. There's so many options, and you want to pick the
Yeah.
right one. Okay, so it's not very creative from that sense. But Right Tool is a Chrome extension that installs in your Chrome browser. It could be other Chromium-based browsers like Microsoft Edge, Opera, Arc. There's a couple of other browsers that are built on Chrome. Firefox and Safari wouldn't qualify, so it wouldn't work on those. And if
Okay.
you install it, Right Tool activates itself when QuickBooks Online opens. And that manifestation is a right-sided navigation bar. The right-sided navigation bar attempts to replace QuickBooks' native left-sided navigation bar. Not
Okay.
because QuickBooks' left navigation bar has any problem, not because looking at the left side has any problems. The problem is there isn't enough tools for you, right? There's a couple of buttons there. There's a lot of buttons, but the stuff that you always need is not available on the left navigation bar, or you have to click a couple menus deep to get into it. So
Okay.
as a person that uses QuickBooks Online every single day, that does a lot of repetitive work, that works with 2, 3, 4 clients in any single day, switching back and forth, and just wants to get straight to the register to enter these transactions, straight to the journal entry to enter these transactions, straight to the P&L to revise a couple of things before I figure out what adjustment to make. As a person that's doing a lot of repetitive work, accessing screens that require multiple clicks to get there, I knew there had to be a better way. And as much feedback as you can give into it, and as much respect a lot of Intuit people have for me, it's a really big ship to try to steer, and trying to get them to add something or change something is
Right.
very challenging. And they go through A/B testing and going through legal teams and this and that. And I developed an idea, which is I want to build a database of all the screens you can get into QuickBooks via a direct URL and put them in my bookmarks bar. So I started, this is pre-Right Tool. I built this database, and then I was selling the bookmarks for like $25. Like, people were buying bookmarks. I mean, in the 2020s, people were buying
Yeah.
bookmarks, right? Like, not 1990s, the 2020s, people were buying
Right.
bookmarks. And they bought so many from me, and everybody thanked me and emailed me, said, "These are amazing, awesome, saved me so much time," that I'm thinking there has to be a way to productize this. So it's not a bookmark, so it's like an
Right.
app of some sorts. But I'm not a developer. I don't know anything about development. And kind of serendipitous, I was surfing the web or in LinkedIn actually, and I saw someone, a young programmer, that was experimenting with a Chrome extension and getting QuickBooks to do a couple of automations. And he posted a couple of videos saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? I've been working on this. What do you think about this?" And he was a person that went into bookkeeping, got very frustrated with QuickBooks, but had a background in coding, and kind of figured I could fix some of these things myself. And I saw what he was doing, and it just felt like wizardry. Like, he was putting buttons inside of the QuickBooks Online interface. And I'm like, "Wait, how do you do that?" And I DM'd them and say, "Hey, man, how do you do that?" He's like, "Well, I do this with Chrome extension, and I write JavaScript, and I can show you." I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely, show me." So he showed me a couple of things he was working on, and I said, "You know what, Mark, I may hire you. Are you for hire to build an app?" He's like, "Sure." He's like, "Okay, here's my bookmarks bar," and he's like, "Oh yeah, that sounds pretty interesting." And he's like, "What else?" I'm like, "Well, this might come out of left field, but one of my greatest frustrations with QuickBooks has always been that I can't copy and paste into it. Like, it's always been a problem. QuickBooks Desktop had a problem with that. QuickBooks Online has a problem to that. You can copy and paste into single cells, but you can't copy and paste matrices or tables the way you do in spreadsheets." And he's like, "That's very interesting." And I showed him a couple of kind of sketches that I had, and a program I had hired somebody to build for QuickBooks Desktop years ago that wasn't working anymore. And he's like, "Okay, let me think about it." And then within 3 days, he comes back and says, "Hey, I got a prototype for you." And he had a prototype of the bookmarks bar on a right navigation bar, which I didn't even think of that, where to
Right.
physically put it, and a prototype of the copy and pasting, which sort of kind of worked. And I was like, "How in the world do you get this done over the weekend?" And he's like, "Easy, this and that." And I said, "You know what? I'm not gonna hire for you for this. I want to partner with you on this. What are your thoughts about, and I kind of laid out a vision of like everything I thought like was broken with QuickBooks. I've had this personal database of my gripes with QuickBooks Online for years, and it was over 100 lines. And I said, let me walk you through everything I hate about QuickBooks Online, but I still have to use it. But if this was in there, it would be a game changer. And he goes through them. He goes, oh, this one's easy. Oh, I'm not sure about this one. This one's easy. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Let's just be. We haven't even met in person. You know, like it's like I'm gonna draft the contract. I'm gonna put together a business plan. If you agree, let's go in business 50-50. Let's do it. And within a weekend, we sorted things out, and Right Tool was born. Now, Right Tool was my idea of the name. Again, I don't take credit. It's not an incredible name, but because it was the right navigation bar. So I figured like it's just the easiest thing to describe and to see, and then it doesn't require a lot of explanation, right? It's a tool on the right-hand side, and Right Tool was born. And then every single night for like a year and a half, me and him would chat about ideas and how to implement this, how to implement that. He taught me a lot of his development process. You know, I don't know any code, but he was kind of explaining, you know, the limitations of what a Chrome extension can do, and started creating some guardrails in terms of, okay, what are the ideas I think that could be achievable? That way I don't send them in a wild goose chase with all these crazy ideas. And then I started really thinking creatively about within these limitations of what's possible, what can I implement from my big list? So we did that, and then we kind of started building in public. So I did a video saying, hey, everybody, all my followers, I have a new mission. We're going to fix QuickBooks Online. We're going to make it better. We're going to make it more productive. Do you have nostalgia for the things that you were able to do in QuickBooks Desktop? I'm going to try to bring in some of that. And we're going to build in public. So here's a public beta, brand new. Give it a shot. And here's a feedback form. So we had 100, 200, 300, like 600 people, maybe even 1,000 people testing in public with us, giving us feedback, showing us that theirs wasn't working. We would log into Zoom and see that their screen's different than our screen, and that we have to deal with QuickBooks Online having multiple versions of the same screen. And we had to build, you know, if this, if that, so the Right Tool knows how to run the program based on what screen is in. So we learned a lot. This is from September of 2022 through mid-December of 2022. Then I said, Mark, we're going to start charging for this. So I went to the public and said, hey, we're going to start charging $50 a month for this tool starting January 1st of 2023. However, all of you beta testers, you have the opportunity to jump in at $150 for a year, right? So, you know, $10, $15 per month. And then it was a no-brainer. We had 300 people sign up, and that was our working capital, right? So with that, you know, $45,000 that came in, we hired a person. Mark brought in his mentor into the business to have a second sort of lead developer. And then we just spent the next couple of years just building for our customers. And our customers told us, what about this? What about this? We started a Facebook group. We started a YouTube channel. Every single feature has a video accompanying the feature. We started a monthly webinar series to get live feedback of what we're working on. And it's been a very much community-driven, community-built tool that I would never have imagined the level of success that we've had in 2.5 years, stemming from this original crackpot idea I had from transferring bookmarks into a Chrome extension. The brilliance of Mark, my partner, of like even experimenting that way. This whole thing has built into something that I could never have imagined, and I have learned so much about the software development process, about the software business, about serving our customers, about reaction time, about customer service. And what's even most interesting, kind of the cherry on top here, is that once ChatGPT and Claude and all the AI tools started to be really good at coding, I started, instead of requesting my developers, can you build this? Can you build that? I started telling ChatGPT, showing them screenshots of the page, showing them the HTML of the page, and say, hey, if I were to add a button that would do this and do that, what would that look like? And it would write me code, and I would test it. And then when I have something semi-working, Then I go to the developers and say, hey, I was working on this idea. What do you guys think about this? And I feel that I was part of the development process, even though I don't know how to write one line of code. And I used artificial intelligence to do that. And today I experiment with ideas all the time. People in our Facebook group say, hey, I wish Write Tool could do this. And I'm thinking, I can't commit our developers to do that now, but I'll write a quick script. And then I email the customer and I go, hey, run this script, see if that works. And people go, holy crap, that worked. That's incredible. And then if I get really good feedback, then I give it to the developers and say, hey, put this in the back burner, try to add this feature at some point. And today we have like 120 features in Write Tool.
Wow. And is your customer base primarily the end user or the public accounting pro like yourself?
So good question. We have over 20,000 active users, but we have two versions of the program. We have a free version, which activates immediately when you download the app. You don't even have to register. So we actually don't know who those people are. So there's 17,000 people that use Write Tool. We don't know who they are. They don't have to, they don't have to register or anything like that. But when they use their email to log into QuickBooks Online, and we have that in the terms and conditions, we automatically add them to the webinar series. So we've been learning who they are as they show up into the webinars. And a lot of them say, you continue to get in there, and then they join the Facebook group, and now we really know who they are. So we have like almost 5,000 people in the Facebook group at this point, which is a mixture of the free users and the paid users. The paid users, we found about 95% are accounting firms. And the reason we know, because we haven't even surveyed them, is we look at their emails and they're all something accounting, something bookkeeping, something tax.
Yeah.
And then interesting enough, when we start getting emails and stuff from people that from people that work in non-accounting firms, they're almost always the lead bookkeeper, the controller, the CFO, because it's the person that deals with QuickBooks. So basically, a person that's in QuickBooks all day long likes Write Tool. The free users are mostly the non-accounting folks. Once the accounting folks realize that the paid version has a lot of accounting-driven tools because it's built by accountants for accountants, part of the community, typically the ones that join the paid program are the accounting professionals.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that. And so, so we talked about early history, talked about your firm, which you're still involved with, but not doing tax returns on a
not tax returns, no bookkeeping. I still do some. So what we've done is I've increased my price way up for like one-on-one consulting. So right before I sold my firm, I was at $750 for we just call it a training session, which is scheduled for 2 hours, but we say in average is about 90 minutes. But we tell people, if you don't have at least an hour worth of work, it's probably not even worth it for either one of us. But we doubled that to $1,500 so we get less demand. And interestingly enough, I think I have more demand now. So I block my calendar a lot, so there isn't that much available space. But anybody that wants to do one-on-one with me, they have to pay $1,500, and they get an average of 90 minutes with me. And it's mostly like really sort of semi-complex QuickBooks stuff. I'm getting a lot of app developers that are sort of really impressed with Write Tool, that want to pick my brain about like, hey, how do you grow an app so quickly? How do you serve your customers? How do you respond so fast? We don't get into the technical stuff, but we get more into like the strategy. So a lot of app developers want to pick my brain about that stuff. And it usually turns into picking my brain about the actual functions of their product. And I'm doing a lot of consulting work with these apps, which actually helps me a lot because I build relationships and they end up sponsoring my conference, which is the other business that I have, which is Reframe, which we could talk about as well. But that's kind of what I'm doing when it comes to, let's call it, my firm and the consulting work. So I do maybe 3 of those a month, maybe 4 of those a month. And then the rest of the time, I try to focus on helping our Write Tool customers and then developing the content for Reframe.
Okay. And then, so great transition, but actually before we dive deep into Reframe, would you 10 years ago, would you thought that your primary focus would have been around training and app development versus doing, typical, accounting work?
So I'm gonna give you a longer story. Okay. Hopefully this is a good long format podcast for a longer story. So when I first started my business, it was happening at the same time that I had a full-time job. I was working at a bank at the time, and I started my business when my daughter was born, because my wife said, I'm not going back to work. And I'm like, well, that's like half of our salary is disappearing. Right. So we got to figure something out. And then somehow, sort of by accident, we landed on bookkeeping. This is before I became a CPA. We landed on bookkeeping. We were doing QuickBooks desktop support remotely using LogMeIn. Okay. I don't know if you remember LogMeIn.
Yeah, sure.
That's what we're doing. And that there wasn't that much, the broadband wasn't what it was today. So we had to put it in black and white and low resolution mode. So we would squint our eyes while we're looking remotely into QuickBooks. It wasn't a fun time. Really, it wasn't a fun time. Plus collaborating in cloud-based apps is like night and day from like remoting into someone's QuickBooks desktop file. Anyway, so long story short, I was learning how to use QuickBooks. Then I've always liked public speaking. I've always liked training. In my past jobs, I was always good at training, but I never really taught QuickBooks. So I haven't quit my job yet. And I was listed as a QuickBooks Pro Advisor in the Pro Advisor website. And I get a phone call in my lunch break in my bank job from a random 1-800 number. And somebody says, is this Hector Garcia? Yeah. We need a trainer to teach a QuickBooks class in Miami this weekend. This was like a Wednesday. and we had a trainer, but the trainer, whatever, got ill. I don't know what happened. Died. I don't know what happened to the trainer. Yeah. And we're looking at your profile here, and years of experience. Like for some reason, I had put 12 instead of 2. So it says here you have 12 years of experience, and I said, yeah. Okay. Can you teach this class? And I'm like, of course. I teach all the time.
Yeah, of course. What's the class?
First and last time I ever lied. And then she said, how long you been teaching for? And I'm like, okay, well, she said 12. I said, 12 years? And she said, you're hired. Okay, it's going to be $400. It's going to be in this hotel. We're going to ship you a bunch of laptops. You should have the laptops by Friday. I'm going to send you an email with the contract. I'm like, okay. And then that day I come home and I tell my wife, hey, I just got hired to teach a QuickBooks desktop class. And I told them I had 12 years of experience. And, she's like, you could do it. So I went to my old stomping ground. I went to Best Buy where I used to work. I bought a camera and I put it on. I started practicing. Teaching. I spent 2 days. I didn't sleep. I was so nervous about this. And the day came, the computers came. I got to the hotel like at, I don't know, maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The night before, I spent so many hours talking to the hotel staff. I've never done this before. It was in a hotel training room. I set up all the computers. My wife went with me. I dropped off the kids, with my mother-in-law. And like we spent the night at the hotel. And then the next day or the next weekend, we taught that class, and the class ended and people clapped. And at that moment, I said, this is what I want to do for a living. This is absolutely awesome. What I do for a living. Now, I'm not saying they clapped because the class was stellar, because I go back to the video because I actually recorded it and it's actually super cringe. But I think they clapped because it's not easy to sit there for 2 days, two straight 8-hour days and teach QuickBooks to a bunch of non-accountants. Actually, there was one accountant there who corrected me in a lot of accounting concepts, which I appreciate very much. Sort of kept me on my toes. But that person told me, hey, by the way, some of the accounting concepts you have wrong, but like, QuickBooks very well, keep at it. So it was very encouraging. So to answer your question, is after that moment, I knew I was going to be involved with training in one way, shape, or form. Like this is 2010, I believe, when I first taught a class. 2010, yeah, probably, or 2009. And YouTube was like, it was a thing, but it wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? So like me saying that I was going to make videos, or bridging the gap into thinking that's the path I was going to take. It wasn't even within my radar.
Okay. And so then we move the clock forward, or the calendar forward, to 2022. Is that when you launched Reframe?
Correct. No, right. See, yeah, it happened at the same time. So 2022, I launched Right Tool.
Okay.
And in 2023, we did our first Reframe conference. Now I'll give you some, I'm gonna go backwards a little bit.
Okay.
So I've been reading a lot of stuff by a lot of different people. I've been inspired by a gazillion things. And in about 2008 or so we're kind of going a little bit backwards before Right Tool, I wanted to start teaching other accountants how to think strategically about their business. And I built a program called the Alt Accountant Program. And right now, I don't think that's a great name. At that moment, I thought it was a great name because I had recently gotten off a program by Seth Godin called the Alt MBA.
Okay.
And the Alt MBA was a Zoom version of like a mini MBA in 6 weeks, where they teach concepts, in Zoom rooms, and then people break out and they discuss the concepts, and then they do homework, and then they turn in the homework. And I thought this is just a brilliant way to get people to, learn, share, and do homework and teach a concept. So I basically copied the format and called it Alt Accountant. And then I started the program, and I started teaching. I called it the PPP. This is before COVID.
Before PPP.
I called it the PPP before PPP, which was pricing, positioning, and productizing, productization. Okay. So I was just teaching those 3 things, right? Like how to price your services, how to position yourself as an expert, and how to productize your services, particularly for productizing diagnosis and, building subscriptions versions of your business and services that you don't have to do a lot to sell. Like it's a package, it's prepackaged. So I was teaching those 3 things, and I taught it, and I thought I could grow the Alt Accountant brand. Then I brought my brother into it, and he was teaching me. We were co-teaching the concepts together. My brother's not an accountant, but he's a great facilitator, much better facilitator than I am and I will ever be. So I started sort of bringing him into this world so he can learn more about accounting and stuff. So we were doing that for a couple of years, and then we decided to build the Alt Accountant Conference. So in 2023, we had the Alt Accountant Conference, and the theme was creative business models for accountants. Okay. Now, the logo, you're going to imagine this. I know this is a podcast, so we have to say imagine. Close your eyes and imagine. Was the word creative really big in red, business models really small and white, and then accountants really big, really big in black, in red again. So if you look at it from far away, you will see creative accountants. Okay, now creative accountants is kind of a oxymoron, right?
Right, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's kind of an oxymoron. And also for some people, creative accounting, it's like a legal thing, right? It's like, expanding
right,
loopholes.
Can't get too
to
creative,
the edge.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have this shocking experience that, wait, accountants can be creative. And the whole conference was, how can we creatively rethink of our business models? And I was very inspired by Ron Baker's book called Time's Up, where he's introducing the concept of a subscription-based model for accountants. So beyond billable hour, beyond even value pricing. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to theme a conference around that. And simultaneously, I started becoming friends with a gentleman by the name of Chris Do, who is a very creative professional. He's a graphic designer. He's a YouTuber. We connected during the pandemic by creating content. We kind of stumbled upon each other. And I called Chris and I said, hey, man, I would love to get you in the room with Ron and get sort of Ron, who's the ultimate sort of, godfather of value pricing, analytical accounting person. And this is like the most creative person that I know. What if we get them in a room, we get them talking, it's going to be magical. So we kind of build the conference around that. And then we had this, business model guy, the creativity guy, and sparks flew, like absolutely sparks flew. People were blown away. People said, I'm coming back next year. We haven't even announced a next year. People said, we're coming back next year. And in the conference, during the conference, I went to Chris, again, a person I admire, very creative person. And I told him, hey, man, what do you think about the logo, huh? Like I was very proud of the creative business models for accountants.
Yeah.
What do you think about the logo? Because the logo was everywhere.
Yeah.
And he says, how are you going to put that on a hashtag? and then it just like completely, like Carlos and I were looking at it going, holy crap, you know what?
Yeah.
There was so much information in that question, right? So he was saying, think about branding, think about simplicity, think about online marketing and social media. You haven't thought about these things. Maybe the name looks cool or whatever, but how are you going to put that on a hashtag was a really important thing. And then I'm like, okay, what do you suggest? And he's like, the Alt Accountant Conference, Creative Business Models for Accountants. That's too much. You got to
long hashtag.
Yeah. You need a better name. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I thought Alt Accountant was pretty good. He's like, no, you need a better name. I'm like, okay, you have any ideas? He's like, well, I might. What are you trying to achieve? And I go into this tirade. Well, I want to help the profession evolve and this and that. And he's listening. He goes, simpler. Well, I want accountants to think different and to swim against the current and to stand out. And he's like, shorter. I want accountants to like forget that AI is going to take over the jobs and leverage AI and position themselves as the experts and advisors. He's like, different. And we just went over and over and over.
It's like, try harder.
He was getting frustrated because I'm very verbose. And he's like, you know what? Let me ask you a different question. How are you going to achieve your goal? And I said, well, we are going to teach people how to, no. Shorter. How are you going to teach your goal? Well, we're going to get people to rethink about what it means to be an accountant. He's like, okay, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Are you going to change the way accounting works? I'm like, no, accounting, it's a fixed set of rules. It doesn't change. So how are you going to get people to think about it differently? He's like, well, I guess we're going to reframe it as, and he goes, what? Say that again? So we're going to reframe it. He says, that's your name. That's the name of your conference. I'm like, reframe accounting? No. Reframe. Yeah. And my brother and I and Chris were looking at each other like we felt like we just discovered a new element. So we immediately, this happened in the middle of the conference, day 2 of the conference. We said, hey, everybody, we are going to have a conference next year. We're rebranding it. It's called Reframe. We don't know when it is. We don't know where it is. We just know it's next year. We don't even know what the topic is. We just know that this type of magic that you felt and I felt transformative for me too. We want to have this again. So,
and again, that was 2022.
This is 2023. This is 2023.
23.
So we put a QR code on the screen and say, here's your $500 deposit. Based on how many deposits we get, we'll figure out what kind of venue we get next year. We had like 95 people. And granted, most of the people that came were in it for the novelty, and they were in it because they were hardcore followers of my content and stuff.
Sure.
And
there's a lot of value in that, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's proven value, right? Yeah. So the next year we had Reframe 2024. We brought in some really, really like sort of well-known speakers. We brought in the author of a book called Exactly What to Say. We even partnered with him to create a rebranded version of the book called Exactly What to Say for Accountants. And we rewrote all the examples to be contextualized to accounting. And it was a big secret. And we launched the new book in that event with Phil Jones, the author, teaching exactly what to say for accountants. Okay. And we gave a book to everyone. We had a book signing. We brought Chris Doe back again. We also bought a bunch of his books. We had him sign, and it just felt like magic again. And people were super excited, and it was awesome. And we're gonna have Reframe again in 2025 with a new theme, and it's something that my brother and I are very proud of.
Great. Well, that's what actually I called you and said, hey, I want you to share Reframe, but I ended up tricking you into sharing a whole lot more than Reframe. But now that we are at Reframe, details, give me, so we know how it came about. So what is the theme for this year?
So the theme this year is called, okay, so another thing about the theme is I had a long theme. It was effective pricing for accountants. That was the original theme that was presented. Okay. And even Chris and Phil, like the 2 mentors for us, Phil Jones, the author of Exactly What to Say, they were telling me, why are you calling it effective pricing for accountants? And I was like, well, because accountants don't know how to price effectively. And he's like, well, are you teaching just accountants how to price, or really you're teaching all professionals how to price? And I'm like, well, I'm targeting accountants, but in reality, really it's all professionals, because Phil was saying, because a lot of the coaches that I have really need help with pricing, and you can attract people from outside accounting too. So, okay, fine. I'm going to call it effective pricing. Okay, fine. You got me, effective pricing. We got it. And they were even like, I don't know, the word effective didn't resonate. And then Phil asked me, and so why effective pricing again? Why accountants ineffective with pricing? And then I go into the tirade, and he just keeps asking the question over and over and over. And then I said something like, well, I think they just lack the confidence to price what they're worth. And he's like, I think that should be the name. What? Lack of confidence? No. Pricing with confidence. And I'm like,
okay.
Got me again. You guys are good with words. That's why the mentors are so powerful, right? So we changed the theme from effective pricing for accountants to pricing with confidence. We're still targeting accountants, but we're pretty sure we're going to get a couple of non-accountants, which we kind of want, because I think that it's viewing somebody else's viewpoint and how somebody else creatively worked around the problem could spark a different point of view for accounting professionals that have been hearing only sort of one tune on pricing for the last 10 years or so, which is you got to get out of hourly and you have to get into value pricing. And it's always the same tune, it's the same song, which by the way, it's correct, but it almost feels like we need a different version of it so it resonates different, because people are still, even the ones that are value pricing, so to speak, they still tie it to effort.
Right.
So it's so a lot of the conference, or a lot of the event, so to speak, it's going to focus on confidence building for yourself, who's going to say a price, and confidence building for the person that's going to hear the price. So they're confident that they're getting what the person is promising. They're confident that they can trust that person. They're confident that they're going to get the outcome that person is visualizing, because they're like, not outcomes most of the times are experiments on creativity about the future, right? Because telling someone I can deliver financial statements, it's an output, but telling someone I'm going to deliver a better life because you're going to make better decisions, because when the financial statements are done, you're going to get a different way of thinking, and a different way of thinking is going to drive your business to a different level. That's a thought experiment on creative futurization, correct?
Right.
And that's very difficult to build confidence around, because it's speculation, correct? So we are experimenting with the idea on how do we price our potential. That's like the big question of the conference, is how do we price our potential? So it's not the work that we're doing, it's the potential of what we can do together. And that's one of the most untangible things we can think of. And if we can help people build confidence around painting a picture that the potential of people working together is a multiple 10x, 100x of what it might cost to work together, it should be a no-brainer to hire someone like me. And from an individual level, accounting professionals, accounting firms doing this exercise, but most importantly, for industry-wide, for the profession, I want business owners to look at us as, and to think of their accountant as, this guy is the most creative, innovative, and forward-looking professional I have ever talked to. Therefore, anything that they say that talks about our potential to work together and the potential of us building something together, I'm going to pay a lot more attention than the next person, than the next professional. So in many ways,
and possibly pay more money, right?
But exactly, the pay more money is the result, right? So so what I think is that confidence building kind of comes first, and then once you're confident, once they're confident, then you quote unquote price with confidence. So that's the whole idea of what we're going to deliver this year.
Great. And when is that this year?
So that's going to be November 2nd to November 4th. It's a 2.5-day event. November 2nd is a Sunday. Sunday will be the half day. And Sunday, we're going to talk about AI. So we're going to have lunch, then we're going to spend between 2 and 6, and then we're going to talk about AI. And AI it's the backdrop, but it's not the theme. And by the backdrop is, there is this imminent danger that's attacking our profession. which is really taking over the narrative of what accounting is, accounting should be, and the role of bots and computers in the whole accounting process, and is attacking our identity, right? Unfortunately, the accounting profession has built our entire identity in our skill set, right? On the things that we're able to do, right? But the things that we're able to do with our minds and our hands on our spreadsheets and our GL software, not the things we're able to do in communicating and painting a desired future state and reimagining the future. Accountants by trade, they're historians. Their job is to look at the past and certify that the past is properly accounted for. That's what accountants do. That's what the whole profession is. AI is going to so easily going to be able to audit things. It's going to be able to categorize things. It's going to be able to prepare financial statements so easily and so quickly that if we have our identity tied to just that, we'll become irrelevant. So what I want to do, my mission, my personal mission and Reframe's mission is to rebrand the profession to be sought after as the most creative, forward-looking, and innovative of all professions. And in the backdrop of AI, what that really means is to rebrand accounting as the most human of all professions. That way we can counter the narrative of, oh, AI is going to take over the profession or whatever. And then we can simply say, yeah, AI is going to take over the old identity of the profession. And we want that. And we're comfortable with that. But we're stepping into a new identity, which is we're going to be the most human professional you have ever worked with. And because we're so human, we can do the things that the bots can't do, which is help you think about the future creatively, innovatively, and obviously being forward-looking.
That's fantastic. All right. So since you touched on the content, so day one, half day is AI focused, kind of building the backdrop. And then, then what do I get the next couple of days?
Yeah. So we're bringing Ron Baker back, and I'm going to have Ron Baker. We're still thinking about the specific content, but I've told Ron Baker, Ron Baker's one of my mentors. I'm like, I want to tell you the 10 things that I have learned from you. And what I want you to do is to reteach those 10, let's call it rules of life in the backdrop of AI taking over the profession and us rebranding the profession. Can you teach people these wonderful things that I have learned from you? So we'll probably have Ron head or lead off the conference with those sort of things. Then we're going to get into group exercises, and we're going to talk about what does this mean to us? What are these new learnings? What does this new present mean to us? And we're going to do a couple of exercises. And we have a couple of other speakers. We have Trisha Browers, who's a really good friend of my brother Carlos, who is a very innovative pricing in the world of mortgages. She's a mortgage leader. And we had a conversation with her, and it's absolutely fascinating how mortgages are priced. Like there's so much psychology of pricing in mortgages because people think it's just the interest rate, but it's not just the interest rate. It's the terms, it's the balloon payment, it's the prepayment penalty, it's the points up front, it's the points in the back, it's the whether you have enough to have to pay PMI and stuff like that. So she's going to bring in a really interesting, refreshing thought about pricing, and then we're going to recontextualize that to accounting. And then on day 2, we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Blair Enns, who wrote 2 books. One is called Win Without Pitching, and the other one is called thought I had it on my desk, but I don't. And the other one is called The 4 Conversations. And The 4 Conversations just came out this year, and it blew me away. Like I literally finished the book, and I said, I got to email this guy. I said, can you come to Reframe? And it was challenging to have him come in because he doesn't serve the accounting profession. And I kind of we spent like 30 minutes and I give him this same spiel I'm giving you. And he's like, this sounds so interesting. I think I got to do it. So we agreed for him to come, and he's going to come and kind of teach the book and teach to the book. The 4 Conversations is the art of value creation through talking, right? Through through your branding, through your thought leadership, through your sales process, through talking, and through the delivery of the price presentation. So we're going to have this whole conversation about all the stages of value creation that professionals have, right? Your brand, your reputation, your thought leadership, your sales process, and the quality of questions that you ask and how you paint the picture, and finally, how you present your prices. Do you present them in options? Do you present a single price? Do you anchor it against something else? We're going to talk about all that and do deep exercises on that. And that's kind of the vision of the event.
Okay, fantastic. And location?
It's going to be in Coral Gables, Florida. This is Miami. It's about, I don't know, 10 minutes from the airport. It's like 5 miles from the airport. It's very close. And it is my favorite part of Miami because you could walk through restaurants. You can walk. It's just a very walkable area in Miami.
Okay. Is that where it was last year, or is this a different
No,
location?
so we had in 2023, it was Coral Gables. But it was a very small venue. And then 2024, we knew it was going to be much bigger. So we went to a much bigger venue, which was in Hollywood, Florida. Also, it's all South Florida. It's all pretty close by, which is a beach location. And we had a little bit of a different vision, right? We wanted beach, we wanted this, we wanted that. But it was right after a hurricane and there was a lot of wind. And the beach location, I realized that beach location wasn't as cool as I thought it would be in the fall. And this is going to be a fall event all the time. So we went back to our roots and we went back to Coral Gables. So it was Coral Gables, Hollywood, and then back to Coral Gables.
Gotcha. And do you have any other like marquee events that run or coincide with it? Do you have like a big gala night or anything like that?
So during the event and we kind of had a get together rooftop party in 2023. We had a big party in 2024 because the hotel kind of has like this sort of wedding reception style place. And we had a live band and people were dancing and drinking and all that stuff. So we'll have something like that. We'll have kind of a mixture. We'll have a rooftop live music, not a gala, but a networking, a feel-good event on Monday night. It's the official party of Reframe.
Well, great. Well, we can't have this conversation and not tell people where to go. So where do they find more information on Reframe, or should they reach out to you directly? Where do you want to send folks?
So reframeaccounting.com, that's the website. It's reframe.com was taken, and so reframeaccounting.com, very easy. Reframeaccounting.com. You can sign up from there.
All right. Anything that we missed?
No, man. I mean, I would love to know from you what you're working on with Insightful Accountant. Like, what's exciting in your world?
Yeah, our focus has been we kicked off last year at Scaling New Heights a membership program that's called Be Insightful. That is hashtagable, and
I love it.
Right. And so we offer annual fee, monthly fee, but it's built around more webinars. We have 3 webinars a month basically under that program, 9 different training tracks that we cover across the year. And then we have other premium content that is behind the paywall as part of that overall membership. And a lot of that premium content is tied to the webinars. And there's also following the webinars, we do like a coaching session with the speaker. So the speaker is available. Cool. Yeah, speaker's available for an hour or two, typically within the week of the session itself. So that's really
it's like an ask me anything group coaching type of thing.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, and that's what we're focused on now, trying to, and it sounds terrible, but we need to be able to monetize the audience, right? I mean, we're in business to make money, and 90 until now, 100% of our business has come from, or our revenue comes from the sponsor side. We have a pretty large footprint in the accounting space, and we provide a lot of solid, very good content. Historically, it's been free. The algorithm changes at Google and all the others have, and now you do a search, right? You get AI, what AI wants to tell you. You get what Google wants to tell you. You don't get content from Insightful Accountant. You get what they want you to know. I did hear a podcast the other day. It said that may be changing a little bit, but because there's lawsuits and what have you. But basically, we're giving all this content. AI engines are taking it and then they're repurposing it and providing it, and we get nothing. We get
You get no credit. You get no
we
credit. Yeah.
get no credit. We get no juice from that squeeze. And
Right.
so we're putting more of our content behind a registration wall. We
Yeah.
still offer free that's not behind registration, but we have free registration required and then paid. And so our
Right.
focus right now really is trying to manage and manage our way through, the changes that are taking place there. And we see the subscription side, paid subscription side is really where that's taking us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The subscription model. And I'm gonna channel my inner Ron Baker here.
Yeah.
So one of the things that he talks about in his book Time's Up, which is the subscription business model
Yeah.
in the profession, is that Disney had this concept. Walt Disney had this concept called plussing. Plussing is where you constantly add more value elements into your offering. So what is your plussing strategy? Like, how do you continuously add value to your paid subscribers?
Mm. Yeah, it would be right now, it would just be adding more content and, continue to, I guess over provide in content. We've never
Yeah,
really looked at it from that perspective.
do you find that when you over provide in content, you get, and maybe you're not measuring this, but do you
Yeah.
get people to over consume the content, or you give people more choices on what to consume? Because in my experience, there's a budget time limit that everybody puts to content consumption,
Yeah.
right? And this is not like in the calendar. It's just like most people, and as we get older, it's harder to consume more longer form content, and it's also harder to take in new information, right? So I don't necessarily think that the magic formula is like the only formula is to just create. You always have to create new fresh content for sure, because you have to be relevant all the time. But what I mean by plussing is, okay, we know that content is one of them, but is there another pillar of value that you can create, right? So is it CPE, or is it direct questions from the speaker, or is it a community, or is it a choose your own adventure type thing where the users can sort of build a progress map on how they want to get better. That's really what I mean by plussing. So is that in the horizon? Do you have anything like that on the horizon?
I would say when we started the whole conversation around bringing in kind of paid content, community was kind of the base that we started upon. And what we found out, or what we realized kind of as we started digging in, really in order to have a vibrant community, you've got to have somebody that's actively involved in that community, somebody
Yep.
who is prompting questions, answering questions, engaging, forcing people to engage, not forcing,
Right.
but drawing people into that engagement. And we're not structured for that currently. So we had to say, you know what? That's not us. That is not who we are at this stage in our business. I see value in it, see a tremendous value in it. And I know it's part of what you guys do. Nancy McClellan, I talked to her last week, and she's, built a pretty good community pretty quickly.
Yep.
And so we know there's reasons, but again, we would have to kind of staff differently than we are. And that's actually and one other thing that I would say plussing up, we've never thought of it this way, but I think, we are building out, basically trying to get to where we're providing content in the way that people want to consume it.
Yep.
If they want to read it, great, we have that option. If they want to listen to it, great, we have that option. If you want to watch a video of it, great, we have that option. We have a long ways to go in, I would say, in providing.
And we have one more. If I want to
Oh,
chat with it,
yeah, right, yeah. So
with
then,
AI, right? Yeah. So
mhm.
could you have a built-in AI that's behind the paywall that only has the repository of all your content, and could people chat with that content? Wouldn't that be interesting?
That would be, and we actually, I don't know, since what was it was the conversation, what's it called? The EWTS?
Yeah, exactly what to say is the book that
Exactly what it.
that Carlos and I are big fans of.
Yeah. Now, are you familiar I don't know if you can see that one, and are you familiar with this process of scaling up?
Scaling up? No, I haven't.
Yeah. So this friend of mine is now kind of doing that. He's kind of always used the process and the
Yep.
methodology. And so he's kind of gone out on his own and now he's training on it and teaching on it. And he did a session a couple of weeks ago I went to, and it's very good. They really kind of break it down, break your business down. It's really more for bigger companies
Yep.
that have staff, that have people, that have management teams. And so I'm trying to take their concept and bring it down to our size because we're a very small business. But basically, he looks at it's people, strategy, execution, and cash.
Okay.
And in each one of those areas of the business, they build out and kind of give you, a framework
Sure.
to work from, to really think about your business. And so that's, I would say, an internal focus for us is really taking a look at those four areas of the business. Fortunately, we're, cash, we're in a good position there. People, we have people, but are they in the right seats or doing the right things? Um,
That's always
Process,
dynamic, right?
yeah,
People
yeah,
change and people evolve too, right?
yep, yep. Strategy, I would say we've got an okay strategy, and execution is about where we kind of fall and or stumble, not fall, stumble. Because again, as a small business, and many firms are small businesses, it's there's 1,000 things we can do, but what are the, two or three that we should do, and then build the plan to make that happen. And
Mm,
ultimately, it's got to be based on where we're trying to get to. And
exactly.
while my business partner and I have talked about where we want to go with the business, we've not put our flag in the ground and said, this is where this business is headed in 5 years. And until we
Yeah.
do that, I mean, all the strategy planning, execution is good, but if you don't really know exactly where you're going, you're going to get somewhere, but it might not be where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
I
would
think
say
that's
that's,
half the battle is awareness and knowing where you are, where you want to be.
yep.
The other, and I read this from this is from Blair Ann's book from the Four Conversations, is that in order to like sort he believes that sort of the secret to success and having a unique brand is to have what he calls a unique point of view. And if people look at your business and they look at all the components of your brand, but they can't identify what is your voice, what is your unique point of view, then over time, the value of the brand kind of dies out.
Mm.
So I thought that was really interesting. It's a new concept.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out what it means. And he doesn't mean like political point of view.
right,
It doesn't mean that. It means, if somebody reads the same type of content from you, can they recognize that it's your voice because your voice has a style,
right,
has an angle, has a common enemy, has a very well defined approach or framework towards solving the problem. So I thought that was interesting and wanted to share that with you if that's
right.
useful.
And you said that's called Four Conversations.
The Four Conversations by Blair Enns.
Okay. Yeah. Might have to look that up. And I need a new book. I've kind of gone through the scaling up one. So, all right. Well, Hector, thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation and look forward to seeing you soon. Actually, that is one other question, then we'll wrap up. Where will you be? Obviously, you'll be at Reframe in November. Are you traveling much? Are you going to other events?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go to WriteWorks, the WriteWorks event called Right
Yep.
Now, which
Yep.
is mid-May
Yep.
in
In
Nashville.
Nashville, right? Yep.
So I'm scheduled to do that. I'm also going to be, it's more of a private event at the Right Tool Retreat. So we had this bright idea of inviting our pro users to an event in North Carolina. It's
Okay.
like in Winston-Salem, but it's a really nice property. And we're gonna have 30 to 40 of our pro users in 2.5 days workshopping the next version of Right
Mm,
Tool. So I'm
okay.
gonna be there, and I'm gonna be at Reframe. It's possible that I might be at QuickBooks Connect or Intuit Connect, as I usually am at
Yeah.
that conference, but it's the week before Reframe. So I'm still deciding whether or not I want to have that undue pressure on me before the event that I'm running. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot. I
How
know
about you?
events
Where
take
are
a
you gonna
lot.
be?
So. We're going to go to, are you familiar with Grocon? Are you familiar
No.
with that?
Oh,
It's
is that connected to the Profit First? Oh no, that's Profit. That's Profit Co.
Universal Accounting.
The one in Utah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to that. We're gonna go to Scaling New Heights, and we'll go to Intuit Connect. That's the only things I've got on my calendar currently.
My
So,
partner Mark, the developer of Right Tool, he's gonna be a scaling. So if you see him,
okay.
say hello.
Yeah. Tell him to stop by. All right. Well, Hector, thank you so
Awesome.
much. Appreciate the
Bye.
conversation. It was
Thank you
good
so
to catch
much. It
up.
was great.
All right. Bye bye.
Let's catch you up.